Then on Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the 2022 Myrtle Beach Bowl matchup between the Marshall Thundering Herd and the UConn Huskies, two teams that have had good seasons getting to this point. You got Marshall, one of the top teams in the Sun Belt this season. This team is 8-4 heading into this matchup, and they're taking on UConn. The Huskies haven't been in a bowl game since 2015. It's been 7 years since we last saw UConn in a bowl game, so this is a big game for them as well. Some good storylines heading into this matchup. Should make for a good one. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting with their team trends. Marshall beat Georgia State 28-23 was the final score there. Georgia State was a poor team this season, but in the end what really matters is that Marshall got the win. And overall they had a really good November. They won all 4 of their games in the month of November, so they're coming off of a 4-game winning streak heading into this game. And if you compare that with UConn, the Huskies have been a bit more inconsistent down the stretch. They lost to Army in the last game of their regular season, 17-34, and this team hasn't played in just about a month. They did not play in the actual Week 13. Week 12 against Army was when their last game of the season was. So it's been a little while since UConn has played a football game. But overall, it's been a good season for them. 6-6. This is improvement off of their recent years. They've recently been the worst team in the FBS, the entire FBS. And for them to get up to 6 wins, I'd say is a great improvement for them. I mean, they started out the season 1-4. It looked like any other season at first, but they picked up good wins over Fresno State, which, by the way, Fresno State ended up winning the Mountain West in the end. They beat Florida International after that, got a couple of wins, and from there they won 3 more in the later parts of October and into November. So once again, not a bad season for UConn to this point. Games will be on Monday, December 19th in Conway, South Carolina. Your kickoff is 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Spread's going with Marshall by 10 here, so the Thundering Herd are favored by a decent margin here, and we'll get into more about why that is once we look at stats a little bit further. But yeah, Marshall's favored by a decent margin here, and it's also expected to be more of a lower scoring game. Over-under is 41, so it is expected that Marshall should win this game, and there's a chance that they're going to be dominant in doing so. And the FPI is also going with Marshall here, 79.8%. Series history, Marshall leads at 1-0, and that game was in 2015. And you think about it, UConn, the last time they were in a bowl game was 2015. In fact, this was the bowl matchup that UConn was in. It was Marshall and UConn back in 2015. So this is 2 straight bowl matchups that UConn has been in, where they're facing off against Marshall. So something interesting to note there, and that's also the one other time that these two teams have met. Stat comparison for this one: Marshall 105th in points per game, 9th in points allowed. This is a strong defensive team here. They're 102nd in passers a game, 30th in rush yards, and then for yards allowed, 52nd in passing, 10th in rushing. So yeah, you got a team here that's strong on defense. They're only allowing an average of 16 points a game, but on offense they're only getting 24. The rushing game pretty strong. You got Callan LeBourne, who's been the top rusher, and he's been a key player. He's been significant to this offense. He's rushed for over 1,400 yards and 16 touchdowns this season. So he is one of the most talented players on the field come Monday. So he is going to be a player to keep an eye on. And then for yards allowed, yeah, I mean, this team is 10th in rush yards allowed, one of the best rush defenses in the country. And if you're comparing that with UConn is 116th in points per game, 72nd in points allowed, 127th in passers game, 36th in rush yards. This is a strong rushing offense in UConn. That's the main way that they have success on offense. Their passing game has just been rough this season, 127th in the country, which is like 5th to last. So you got Zion Turner, who's been the primary starting quarterback for the Huskies, and if you look at his stats, not very good. 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, 7 picks. I mean, you got Cam Fancher, who's been the primary starting quarterback for Marshall. I mean, even he hasn't been very impressive. 1,400 yards, 8 touchdowns, 5 picks, even though at a time we did see the Texas Tech transfer quarterback Henry Colombi. He was the main starter for this team in the early parts of the season before Cam Fancher took over. So quarterback situation, yeah, kind of bad for both teams, but the rushing game has overall been strong. So if you look at who has the better rush defense here, far and away it is Marshall. So if you compare these two teams, Marshall's got a strong rush defense. You're going up against a team that is known for being a decent team in the rushing game. And so that's, I would say, a benefit for Marshall there. You got a rush defense that's only allowing 88 yards a game. So it's going to be tough to rush the ball on Marshall. And I think it's going to be a game where UConn's not going to be able to score too many points. So defensively, that means UConn is going to have to put up a strong performance. And if you look at Marshall, once again, this team is a good team in the backfield. The main way they score points is on the ground with Callum LeBourne. So, and if you look at UConn's rush defense, 92nd in the country, allowing an average of 166 rush yards a game. So this rush defense in UConn isn't anywhere near as good. So that is something to keep in mind, and that's a big reason why Marshall is favored by as much as they are in this matchup. Recent matchups, Marshall beat Georgia State 20-23, beat Georgia Southern 23-10. That game was on the road. They beat App State 28-21, shut out Old Dominion 12-0. Low scoring game there, that's for sure. And then they lost to Coastal Carolina back in late October 13-24. As for UConn, they lost to Army 17-34, beat Liberty 36-33, took care of UMass 27-10, beat Boston College, an ACC team there 13-3, and lost to Ball State by 4, 21-25. So this team has been competitive, beating Boston College. I know Boston College had a bad year, but that's a Power 5 opponent you beat there. Liberty hasn't had a bad season. You beat them by 3. I mean, you look back to the early parts of the season, they got destroyed by NC State and Michigan and Syracuse, and but those 3 teams are far and away some of the best teams that they've played. It was really once they got into October and they beat Fresno State, that's when this season really turned around for UConn, and this team won 5 of their last 7. So that is impressive there. They're 5-2 in their last 7 games. Key points for this one, Marshall 8-4, consistently a strong defensive team here. You got a playmaker in Callum LeBourne. He's going to be, once again, a key player, and UConn is going to have to stop him. And considering this rush defense has been poor at times this season, that's definitely going to be a tough thing to do. I mean, once again, we mentioned his stats. He's rushed for nearly 1,500 yards this season, as well as 16 touchdowns. And Marshall overall has played well down the stretch. They've won 4 straight heading into this matchup. And yeah, that's also 5 of their last 6. So yeah, it's been a strong finish to the season for the Thundering Herd. As for UConn, this team, first bowl appearance since 2015. I do think it's kind of funny how last time UConn played in a bowl game was 7 years ago, and they're playing the same team in 2022 as they did in 2015. It's still a Marshall-UConn matchup. UConn is inconsistent, but they have won a few crucial games. I mean, if you look at how they played down the stretch, I mean, and how this team was heading into October, they were 1-4 heading into October. It looked like the season was just about lost, like most recent seasons, but I mean, this team has fought back into it. They've gotten a couple of good wins. That Fresno State game was important. They won that, and also beat Boston College, beat Liberty down the stretch. So an impressive finish for the Huskies, that's for sure, but this team will need a strong game defensively, especially on the D-line and trying to contain LeBourne. But that said, let's get to the prediction here for Marshall and UConn coming up here in the Myrtle Beach Bowl. I'll be going with Marshall in this one. 24-13 is my predicted final score. I just think Marshall is far and away the most reasonable, the most comfortable bet here. I mean, UConn, I feel like they're a better team than in years past, that's for sure. They've found ways to win games, but when it comes down to it, I mean, UConn is just too inconsistent, and the way that Marshall's played down the stretch, and also, I mean, you look back to that stat comparison, I mean, the numbers are saying that Marshall is the clear favorite in this one, and it's a bowl game on a Monday. You never know what can happen. I mean, we could see UConn definitely win this one, and that would be a huge deal for them. But in the end, I just don't see UConn winning this over a Marshall team that is statistically, it's a great matchup for Marshall. And in the end, I'm going to give them the win 24-13. So I'll say 55% towards Marshall, over under 41. Give me the under for this one. I see this one being a defensive, low-scoring game, and the Thundering Herd covering the spread in the end, which is currently 10 points towards Marshall. But that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup, and I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.